So the Democrats are opposing the funding of a wall on the Mexican border, a modest funding of it, actually, to the degree that they're willing to shut down the government in their opposition. Yet they obviously don't really offer an explanation in terms of why they oppose it. Nancy Pelosi says that the budget cannot include funding for the wall. She says that's a non-starter, and the president knows that, which I think speaks to why the Democrats oppose the wall, partially anyway. But before I go there, I just want to talk a little bit about the wall itself. It makes obvious sense to build a wall on the border. There are 71 nations around the world that have walls on their borders, or some approximation of a wall. Tunisia has a wall on its border with Libya to keep out terrorists. Israel has built a wall around Palestinian Arab communities to keep out suicide bombers, and it's been effective 98-99% of the time. Of course, historically, walls have been used. China built the Great Wall, which is today the very image of China, which protected China from Mongol invasions for almost 1,000 years. The Istanbul, Constantinople, built a wall when the Huns threatened the Eastern Roman Empire, and did so very rapidly. Apparently, it took less than a year to build one of the most famous and best fortifications in history. And it effectively saved the Byzantines from such invasion, and they went on for another 1,000 years as well. Hadrian's Wall kept out the Scots. There were walls around all the great cities of Europe and the Middle East. Walls are built simply to deal with an obvious threat, and the degree of the wall depends on the nature of the threat. Now, to create walls or barriers is normal. It's natural. For example, anyone listening to this program most likely locks their front and back door to their home. Why? That's building a wall. That's building a barrier to the outside, because they want to take reasonable precautions that any unwanted person will not enter their private domicile. They have the door to their car locked out in the driveway because they don't want someone to enter their car and possibly steal it. It's not that somebody will, but you take reasonable precautions. And if you happen to live in a neighborhood where there is a higher instance of people breaking in, you're going to see more than walls. You're going to see maybe iron bars on the windows, or you're going to see padlocks and other sort of fortifications. It all depends. The Federal Reserve Bank in Boston has people with machine guns and flak jackets. The degree of protection depends upon an estimate of the degree of the threat, and it's a perfectly normal thing. It's human nature to protect our safety and our property. Animals understand this. Try to go into a beaver's, dam. Try to invade the space of a bird's nest. Try to invade a beehive, and you'll find out that they have territory. They may not go down to the Register of Deeds to register it, but they understand it. Animals know this instinctively. Try to go into the space of a dog, and you'll find out pretty quickly that you violated their territory. So building a wall on a national border is as normal and as natural as the individual fortifying their private home. It's just it's something that we do for obvious reasons. It's kind of a given. So why then are the Democrats so opposed to this? For two reasons, I think. The first is obvious. They hate Donald J. Trump. They don't want Trump to have a success, and they're fearful that the wall will be successful, which will only further bolster Donald Trump. So it's simply a political equation. If the wall is built and illegal immigration is stopped by like 95, 98%, then Donald Trump will look good, and that will further ensure not just his reelection, but his entire philosophy, his position of putting America first, or putting the interests of his own nation before that of any other interest. And they can't tolerate that. The second reason is more subtle, and that gets into perhaps the more radical elements of the Democratic Party, maybe some of the new people coming in, and that is the opposition to the right of nations to have sovereignty. They don't believe in borders. They don't believe in walls. They believe in a one world order where everybody sits around a campfire and wiggles their toes and makes s'mores and sings folk songs. This kind of like, rainbows and unicorn view, that somehow we're going to have it's a Marxist view, actually. I mean, that the world will have absolute equality and will become one gigantic international beehive, will become an ant colony where everyone is actually de facto equal and will live in a utopian existence where the Messiah will be human beings returning to nature, and somehow we'll forego such prejudices as barriers and as private ownership and love and faith and family and all the other things that are normal and natural actually to human beings, but that the radical left wants to re-engineer and that they despise. So and that can't be denied, that that's part of this opposition to the wall. But either way, when it comes down to it in terms of practical politics, it's all about Trump, because apparently Barack Obama, to his credit, and George Bush and even Clinton, they did build barriers on the border, and it was not seen as anything other than normal. They did speak against illegal aliens in their State of the Union addresses in very blunt terms. The difference is that nobody really believed them. They do believe President Trump because President Trump is honest and because President Trump means it. So those are my reflections on the business of the wall. I want to thank you for watching this afternoon.